Today we are going to talk about After the Trial poem by Weldon Kees. Harry Weldon Kees, February 24, 1914, disappeared July 18, 1955, was an American poet, painter, literary critic, novelist, playwright, jazz pianist, short story writer, and filmmaker. Despite his brief career, Kees is considered an important mid-20th century poet of the same generation as John Berryman, Elizabeth Bishop, and Robert Lowell. His work has been immensely influential on subsequent generations of poets writing in English and other languages, and his collected poems have been included in many anthologies. Harold Bloom lists the publication of Kees's first book, The Last Man, 1943, as an important event in the chronology of his textbook Modern American Poetry, as well as a book worthy of his Western canon. After the Trial by Weldon Kees is just one example of a great poem. Weldon Kees was born in Beatrice, Nebraska in 1914. He was presumed dead in 1955 when he took his sleeping bag and book, emptied out his bank account, and disappeared. He attended Doane College, University of Missouri, and University of Nebraska, Poetry Foundation. Poetry was only one of his great loves. He enjoyed painting and films as well. Unfortunately, Kees suffered from depression, presumably due to the fact that his parents forced religion up him and his siblings, leaving him feeling deprived. After the Trial was composed in 1941. It was during that time that the attack on Pearl Harbor, the Great Depression, and the Cold War were happening. People of the time turned to religion because they had nothing else. After the Trial contains multiple themes throughout the poem. One theme conveyed throughout the poem is a theme based on the basic premise of Christianity: all men are guilty of sin. This could possibly be Weldon Kees expressing feelings he has from his childhood. The only experience or the hard times Kees lived were the times of his controlling parents. His parents imposed on him his own beliefs, faith or religion. He suffered that kind of control, and he expressed that in his writings. He was also who lived in the time of Elizabeth Bishop and Robert Lowell, who was writing a certain kind of poetry called the confessional poetry, and he was the leader of it. By the way, Weldon Kees did not die normally. He disappeared. He confessed one day to one of his friends that he tried to kill himself or something like that, but when he disappeared, it was unusual for him because he was living a normal life, and he received a job offer from one of his friends and asked one of his friends to accompany him to that place, but they found his car in the road without any trace for him. They presumed that he died, but it was not known exactly what happened to him. Now I am going to read the poem. Hearing the judge's well-considered sentence, the prisoner saw long plateaus of guilt, and thought of all the dismal furnished rooms the past assembled, the eyes of parents staring through walls as though forever to condemn and wound his innocence. And if I raise my voice, protest my innocence, the judges won't revoke their sentence. I could stand screaming in this box forever, leaving them deaf to everything but guilt. All the machinery of law devised by parents could not be stopped though fire swept the rooms. Whenever my thoughts moved to all those rooms I sat alone in, capable of innocence, I know now I was not alone, that parents always were there to speak the hideous sentence: you are our son, be good, we know your guilt. We stare through walls and see your thoughts forever. Sometimes I wished to go away forever. I dreamt of strangers and of stranger rooms where every corner held the light of guilt. Why do the judges stare? I saw no innocence in them. When they pronounced the sentence, I heard instead the believing voice of parents. I can remember evenings when my parents, settling my future happily forever, would frown before they spoke the sentence: someday the time will come to leave these rooms where, under our watchful eyes, you have been innocent. Remember us before you seize the world of guilt. Their eyes burn. How can I deny my guilt when I am guilty in the sight of parents? I cannot think that even they were innocent. At least I shall not have to wait forever to be escorted to the silent rooms where darkness promises a final sentence. The word trial means giving a sentence or a verdict in the court about a guilty person. It is not an actual trial. We have the speaker imagining himself in the court surrounded by judges. We will see who are the judges in our discussion. The words of the poem are very clear and simple. It is like conversational. Form, Cestina, blank verse lines of unequal feet with repetition of n words in a sequence through 6 sextets, ending in a tercet which contains all 6 end words, in this case, but not always, in medial and end line positions. What is a sestina? A sestina is a fixed French form in poetry that is 6 stanzas of 6 lines, each followed by a 3-line stanza. Each line ends with one of 6 words in a standard repetition. These 6 words are chosen by the poet, but must be repeated in a certain order for the poem to qualify as a sestina. The patterns of word repetition are as follows, with each number representing the final word of a line, and each row of numbers representing a stanza. Examples of sestina. Elizabeth Bishop's A Miracle for Breakfast was published in 1972. In a sestina, the focus is on the density of the individual lines and how they contribute to the overall message of each sextet. The lines are conversational and basically iambic, using spondaic and trochaic substitutions without a specific pattern. Likewise, there are no repetitive internal rhymes, and no apparent alliteration scheme from line to line. Stanza 1, hearing the judge's well-considered sentence, the prisoner saw long plateaus of guilt. Here we do not have the first-person speaker. We do not have anyone say I or I am. We have someone who is speaking about someone else. We are looking at the court now through the eyes of someone else, someone who is hearing the judges, and there is a prisoner. And thought of all the dismal furnished rooms. The rooms are described as having dismal furnished, something that is not very appealing or something that is very depressing. The past assembled. The eyes of parents staring through walls as though forever to condemn and wound his innocence. Here we have parents. Staring through walls means looking through the walls. To condemn means to say they are not satisfied about what this prisoner has done. Innocence is wounded, and this means that innocence is not pure anymore. It is not there anymore, so the prisoner is guilty. We have now the prisoner who is defending himself for his innocence, but unfortunately his being guilty is something inescapable because he is in the court and he is going to hear the sentence or the verdict. Stanza 2. Now we have I, the first-person speaker. We have the prisoner speaking in the second stanza. And if I raise my voice, protest my innocence, the judges won't revoke their sentence. He is hesitant to defend himself, but he is expressing his emotions that in the condition I raise my voice and say I am innocent, the judges will not revoke their innocence, they will not change their opinion about myself. We can consider that the judges here in this part could be the actual judges around the prisoner or the society. When a person is guilty or when a person does something wrong in society in his time, he is judged by people around him as someone who is bad person and can never be a good person anymore. Whatever he has done, however good he became, he would not become good in people's eyes or the eyes of the society. So, he thinks that even if I raise my voice and protest means I said no or I defended myself and my innocence, the judges will not change their opinion. This is existed in every society, that if a person behaves in a wrong way, he or she is judged according to that behavior forever, and whatever good he or she became, the society will not change their mind. They will keep remembering and reminding people of that mistake. I could stand screaming in this box forever, leaving them deaf to everything but guilt. This box could be the place in the court. Even if he cried out loud, nobody will hear him. Even if he cried out loud, they can hear his cry, but they will not hear his defense because they become deaf. They will hear nothing but his mistake. This is also the situation of the society. They will hear nothing but mistakes. They become deaf even he screamed out loud. Even if he did something good in his life, but they will become deaf. They will hear nothing but his mistake. All the machinery of law devised by parents could not be stopped though fire swept the rooms. The machinery of laws is the good thing that his parents brought him up on. It is the machinery of laws or rules that his parents brought him up with or by. They were devised by parents. They were made in his life by his parents. It could be the fire of guilt. So, the rules that the parents put in his life cannot keep him from this fire. The fire is guilt or making mistakes. Here we have metaphor. Also we have metaphor in the first stanza, which is, wound is innocence. Innocence cannot have wound, and when innocence has wound, it means that the purity is partially lost. In the second stanza, we have metaphor. When the fire swept the rooms, it is not an actual fire in the room or in the court, but it is the fire of guilt. So, guilt is described as a fire that is sweeping the room or covering the whole place. What is the similarity between fire and guilt? Fire is the thing that is destroying/destructive and can leave nothing behind, can end things, just like guilt as a feeling. It ends someone's life. It leaves nothing pleasant around or behind. So, we can think of this in this way. The place or the room could be the society. Again, it could be the society, the place, or his life in general. He does not talk about his parents in the first stanza. We know about his life that he was controlled by his parents. The parents here can be the judges. He said the laws that are put by the parents could be the laws that are put by the judges. Stanza 3. Whenever my thoughts moved to all those rooms I sat alone in, capable of innocence, I know now I was not alone, that parents always were there to speak the hideous sentence. The parents here mentioned again. He refers to how his parents brought him up in a good way, made him capable of innocence, good upbringing and treatment, but although of that he was not far from guilt or making mistakes. Even if he was guilty and nobody in the society knows about his mistakes, only his parents would confess to him that they know him, they know his mistake and see his thoughts, but they will treat him through that view. Even if the society does not know anything about his mistakes, his parents know him very well because he is their son. They keep telling him that he made that mistake and they see him through that guilt/mistake, which is something annoying for the speaker to be seen through his own mistake. He wishes that he is forgiven or not seen through that mistake or guilt. Stanza 4. Sometimes I wished to go away forever. Now here he is expressing his wish to escape. He expresses not to escape the society, but to escape this kind of feeling of guilt that maybe the society does not know about, but his parents know about, and they see him through that guilt or mistake. Sometimes I wished to go away forever. I dreamt of strangers and of stranger rooms where every corner held the light of guilt. When he wishes to escape, he thinks of people who are guilty more than himself. He thinks of people who committed crimes or made mistakes that are horrible and more harmful than his own mistake. When a person thinks in this way, you would feel that he is a good person. When a person thinks of people whose mistakes are more horrible, he feels that he is a good person in comparison to other people. This is what he wants to say here in these 3 lines. Strangers are other people in other rooms. When he says other rooms, he is now expressing the situation in the court of other guilty people. He does not mean the rooms where every corner held the light of guilt. They have guilt around them in their life, but when he thinks in that way, he feels good. Why do the judges stare? I saw no innocence in them. When they pronounced the sentence, the judges could be the society. The eyes of the society are harmful for him. Why do the judges stare? I saw no innocence. Even the judges themselves are not innocent. They have their own mistakes. I saw no innocence in them. When they pronounce the sentence, it means that they were unfair in their judgment. I heard instead the believing voice of parents. I saw no innocence in them. When they pronounce this sentence, I heard instead the believing voice of parents. Again we have the voice of parents, which is calming for him. We have this in the first stanza. Sometimes when the parents are calming their son, it might be harmful more than being helpful, which is the believing voice of parents. He mentioned this in the first stanza, when they taught him, "We know you, you are our son and we know your guilt." This kind of them being aware of his guilt is harmful for him. The same thing is repeated here in the last two lines. Even the judges are not innocent. They have their own mistakes. Why do they look at me as a guilty person? They remind him of the calming voice of his parents. This is why he means by, why do they stare? It could be the eyes of the society. When the society is judging someone, it is because to reform him and to make him differentiate between what is right and what is wrong, and at the same time, they are destroying him. They are not doing something good for him. It is an irony. They judges and judges are supposed to reform things and make things good in the society and so on, but at the same time, what they say it is destroying for him. The same thing is for the parents. The judges and the parents in this poem are the same here. So, here is the irony that the speaker does not like the hypocrisy, especially when he says I saw no innocence in the judges. So, the judges, who decide whether the person is guilty or innocent, are not innocent in the views of the speaker. So, here we have irony. It is as if he wants to say that judges and his parents are not innocent either, not only myself. It is a kind of hypocrisy. They were all guilty. Stanza 5. I can remember evenings when my parents, settling my future happily forever, would frown before they spoke the sentence. We have a shift here in the speaker's attitude. He is remembering the past. He is remembering when his parents were settling his life with all good things and thinking of his future and preparing him to have a bright future. His parents used to warn him. Someday the time will come to leave these rooms. These rooms are the clean rooms where he was brought up. Under our watchful eyes, these watchful eyes are their protection. You have been innocent. Means you are innocent person. You are brought up well. Remember us before you seize the world of guilt. It is as they are reminding him to become a good guy, a good person. He remembers all the teachings of his parents and such. He is just remembering the good times he had with his parents in the past when he was very pure and innocent. He was brought up with love, and the rules that he refers to here in the lines are the good teachings he had as a kid or as a young man. Someday the time will come to leave these rooms where, under our watchful eyes, you have been innocent. Remember us before you seize the world of guilt. He is remembering the past in a kind of nostalgic way. When he was innocent, when he was protected by his parents, and when his parents reminded him that you are brought up in a clean life and you should keep your eyes watchful or open to keep this kind of innocence and not to make any mistakes, when they say you seize. Stanza 6, then he describes their eyes are burning. Their eyes burn. How can I deny my guilt when I am guilty in the sight of parents? Now this is not in the past. Now their eyes burn. When their eyes burn, how can I deny my guilt? It is as if he tries to forget that he made a mistake, but he cannot because he can see that in the eyes of his parents. When he says the eyes burn, of course in reality the eyes do not burn, but we have this expression in our culture. It expresses what? When someone's eyes are burning, are they satisfied? They are not satisfied, they are angry. The speaker at the beginning of the poem was sure that he is innocent, and he wanted to cry out loud to make everyone hear that he is innocent, but now we find that he is not very confident about his innocence, because here he says how can I deny my guilt? So, he has a guilt, but he cannot deny that, and he cannot forget about his past because he can see that in the eyes of his parents every time they look at him with that look which is a burning look. Their eyes burn. We have a metaphor. When someone's eyes are burning, it means that they are angry. They are not satisfied. I cannot think that even they were innocent. He is not giving people the right to judge others because most of the time people are guilty. If you notice that one of the stanzas, he said that the judges are not innocent, and now he says that parents are not innocent. This is part of Christianity. This is part of the Christian belief that all men, all people are guilty. So, here we have a reference to Christianity every time in the poem. From one time to another, we have reference to this idea that all men are guilty, all men have sins. I cannot think that even they were innocent. He means his parents. At least I shall not have to wait forever to be escorted to the silent rooms where darkness promises a final sentence. Here the final decision he made about himself could be the silent rooms or the final sentence. It could be the silent rooms where he can hear no voices of the judges or people or anyone else, or it could be the final sentence he will hear from people and accept. He describes the final place as silent rooms, so he can hear nothing or none. Darkness is the symbol of the end. Generally speaking, when the evening and darkness come, it is the end of the day. It is the end of things and lights are the beginnings. So, darkness promises a final sentence. It refers here to the end of his own life, the ambiguous circumstances in which he disappeared, or it could be the darkness where he will isolate himself from this kind of society. These 𝒃 lines are very significant to the poet's own biography. So, we said that there is no chance that he is seen not guilty even by his parents, and parents themselves have sins as well. A stanza of 3 lines: we walk forever to the doors of guilt, pursued by our own sentences and eyes of parents, never to enter innocent and quiet rooms. Here we have like a conclusion or a wisdom to life. We walk forever to the doors of guilt, we walk in our life, not on roads. We walk forever to the doors of guilt. So, these lines usually give a conclusion or a summary of the message that he wants to tell to the reader. We here could be the reader, the speaker and the audience. We always walk to the doors of guilt, we are not innocent all the time. Again we have the same idea here. Pursued by our own sentences and eyes of parents, sentences here means the judgment. We are always the judges of ourselves. We are the judges of ourselves because sometime a person is not taken to the court in order to know he is guilty. He or she judges himself or herself. Sometimes people destroy themselves because of their own judgments for themselves. Sometimes they reform themselves because of their judgment. It depends on what kind of psyche they have. So, this is what he means by we are pursued by our own sentences, our own judgment and eyes of parents. The eyes of parents is a very important symbol in the poem. It is repeated in many places in the poem. In the beginning of the poem, it was watchful eyes, then burning eyes, and now the eyes of parents. They are not actual parents. We do not have actual parents. The eyes of our parents that we remember every time will behave well or bad. The eyes of parents are the things that are with us all the time when we walk in our life. Never to enter innocent and quiet rooms, we are not always innocent. At the beginning, he said silent rooms, but here we have quiet rooms. Silent room or quiet room is a place when a person is not bothered by the voices of the society. So, we are always chased by things we blame ourselves for, which is the sentences. And we always feel watched by our parents when the rules of our parents are broken or not followed. Everything will be in our heads to convince ourselves or to condemn ourselves. What does the word condemn mean? To condemn means to refuse something, to say no. With the end, this kind of feeling of making mistake or not making mistake is a kind of things that keeps us away from freedom. This is what he sees. I do not express my thoughts. I express his thoughts, that he finds that all these things are keeping us away from freedom, from complete innocence or from peace, because we are always watching such rules, such eyes and such things. This is the poem of Weldon Kees. It is a message, a wisdom to life, and at the same time, it is biographical elements about his own life, especially that we know he disappeared in the end and he had a kind of confession to his friend that he wanted to kill himself after drinking too much and so on, though he was a normal guy and he received a job, but he disappeared suddenly. People assumed that it could be the kind of control he had in his life. Please, do not forget to like, share, comment, subscribe and click notification bell.